Lesson Day to one and all. This day is a very significant one, for we're about to hear brilliant discussions from different discussants who will share their knowledge about the topics from prior and transformative education. Without further ado, help me to welcome our first speaker, Mr. Jefferson Duldulau, who will discuss conceptualizing practitioner knowledge.
Good day everyone, my name is Jefferson Duldulao. Today we will have to discuss reconceptualizing practitioners' knowledge. Reconceptualizing practitioners' knowledge focus on engaging in the education system and support of others, in particularly on crucial elements within the context of Freudian pedagogy, or also known as the critical pedagogy. It is believed that teaching should challenge learners to examine power structure and pattern of inequality within the status quo. Education system, according to Prairie, it is composed of three aspects. The first one is the structural education. In the Philippine setting, structural education system is the implementation of the K-12 Act or Enhanced Basic Education System of 2013. The second one is the funding. And of course, the third one is the purpose. Increasingly, there is a sense that the social purpose for education is no longer directed towards an ethical goal of creating a capacity for critical social action. Rather, it is about marketization, consumer demands, performativity, employability, and employment. In other words, it is about meeting economic purpose of governments and society. In this way, however, teachers can feel disempowered, disenfranchised, experience a sense of being a victim of change and political agenda. It is helpful to recall the prevailing view of how practitioners learn, the learning of educators, infrequently framed as professional undertaking and as characterized as being discursive, contingent, and embedded within the context of Korean pedagogical aspect. All these influences, however, effectively and confidently educational practitioners respond to the changing educational environments and consequently how effective they are in framing their pedagogy and development within the Freudian ethos of enablements and collaborative critical learning. In this aspect, teachers must be flexible, confident, and self-directed agents in their own practice and in developing learning for others. It is also building on critically reflective and experience-based learning. For example, processes that practitioners should adopt a deliberative process of learning in the workplace. Brilliant pedagogy for the 21st century and for the demands of modern-day communities supporting learning to evolve as a critical change agents in their own right. According to Dr. Alexander Schramm talks about how his pedagogy changed after reading Pedagogy of the Oppressed. He shifted to a problem-solving approach with students from didactic one. He reflects on his move from a banking model to one that enables students to create and act with agency. He realizes his role is actually guide different to the master apprentice, one where students learn from a master. And in learning this, he embraces a Prian stance where power is handed to the learners to actually learn from experience, which from the guide on the side. So with that, that's all for my report, and thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you, sir. This time, let's all listen to Veronique Marana as she discusses the pedagogies of partnership in UK higher education from Blair to Freer.
The chapter gives comparison and contrast of pedagogies of partnership of Paulo Freire, who is a Brazilian educator known for his critical pedagogy, to Tony Blair, who is a former UK Prime Minister known for his New Labour educational policies. In Freire's view, education is a practice of freedom. It should be an activity of freedom. Therefore, the teacher should understand the method of how to maintain the opportunity of freedom to the learner in educational process. In Blair's New Labor educational policies, education is the key to economic success. There is a need for all pupils to have good basic skills in numeracy and literacy, concerned that some groups are not succeeding in education with negative effects for society, communities, and individuals. It sought to reduce inequality of achievement and promote greater diversity, choice, and competitions. As an educator, Paulo Freire searched for the pedagogy, what career path is all about, and finally realizing his own spirit of education. Education either functions as an instrument that is used to facilitate the integration of the younger generation into the logic of the present system and brings about conformity to it, or it becomes the practice of freedom, the means by which men and women deal critically and creatively with reality and discover how to participate in the transformation of their world. The advantages of playwright education are the higher funding, target of increasing participation levels to 50% of young people progressing into higher education, pledge to expand access to all those who benefit from it. Its disadvantage is it failed to challenge neoliberal assumptions and the funding did not match the rise in students' number. Under pedagogy of partnership, student partnership is working based on the values of openness, trust, and honesty, agreed shared goals and values, and regular communication between the partners. The terms reflects a mature relationship based on mutual respect between students and staff. Emerging forms of partnership are students as academic partners, as co-creators of the curriculum, as producers, and as change agents. To sum it up, Freirian educational partnership is romantic, love and hope, community action, possible dreams, social justice, social benefit, community action, conscientizing, radicalization, political, holistic, and being more. While Playwright Educational Partnership is business partnership, contract and charter, stakeholder involvement, addressing shortcomings, employability, individual benefit, individual mobility, personal development, domestication, apolitical, technocratic, and empowerment.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now, to discuss the topics community-based service learning as a transformative strategies and using a Freirean approach within the Global Youth Solutions Program, let's hear it from Sir Justado Cantillo Jr.
The community-based service learning takes to its heart empowering and transforming students who have developed critical thinking skills and civic responsibility. This is done primarily through involving stakeholders through research, advocacies, and even direct service. As a learning principle and in theory, it is driven by action, shaped through reflection, which inspires further and refined actions. As such, service learning is described as a pedagogical strategy that allows students to engage into their communities to better understand concepts through localized real-life applications and respond meaningfully to the needs of the community. Rowe and Chapman highlighted that in community service activities, when learners are able to test their knowledge against reality, it showcases a transforming effect within them. Kendrick used CBSL in sociology module and found out that it increased personal efficacy and greater ability to have new concepts applied. It was reported by Makina and Riso that service learning there is a positive impact on academic and personal development. In a lifespan development course made by Lundi, higher exam scores and increased empathy were recorded. Service learning has impact on students' sense of social responsibility was one of the findings of Reed. Driscoll also noted benefits of service learning as increased curriculum relevance, clarified set of values, civic and community responsibility, and multicultural awareness, to name some. Lastly, Worrell supports that being involved at risk but claims that benefits outweigh the challenges in general. In 2013, All Hallows College piloted a CBSL component in an undergraduate humanities program participated by second and third year BA psychology students with 21 students for time 1 and 16 for time 2. They were introduced to the important developmental stages across the lifespan and aimed to develop deeper understanding from adolescent to adult development. The purpose of the module was to make students interact with their relevant community partners such as disadvantaged communities, elderly people, and those with chronic illnesses by doing random site visits and focused literature review and poster presentations anchored on the relevance of the work the community performs. For the measures, they use a self-report questionnaire to evaluate the CBSL component under the following areas: civic responsibility, critical thinking, collaboration, and academic development. It was primarily done. Generally, students believe that they could make a positive impact on local issues, stating that they can see the needs in the community and they would like to participate in resolving these issues. Community learning through learning module also allowed them to look at the different services provided in the community as first-hand information. Their new understanding of how the community worked also left them in outside the box. CBSL also helped them acquire leadership skills by learning to take initiative and work in a team. The learning module also had positive impact on the sense of mission in the society they live in because doing CBSL was stimulating to study as it had practical applications. Although it had initial problems, it yielded fantastic results still. As to the assessment procedures, the assessment techniques helped them understand the material better and contributed meaningfully to their learning. Some students were burdened by the assessment but were later able to adjust and had it done. Assessment was evaluated as this was a pilot implementation. It is therefore concluded that the written responses provide them indication on the transformative nature of CBSL result also highlighted the need to balance the students' workload with what the community needs or expect from them. This can only be done by taking time to work closely with community partners and build a strong relationship within them in order to discuss a variety of how students from their capable and be of service to the community. Experiences in the pilot implementation of CBSL was patience, challenging, laborious on the part of securing the commitment of community partners, and the faculty reaction were all mixed up from being open to ambivalence and antipathy. The challenge that came with trying to meet the needs of all stakeholders within the narrow framework was also recognized. A balance between meeting academic requirements and contributing to the society we live in is very much desired.
Good morning and good evening, fellow scholars. This is the output of the collaborative effort of our group with Ma'am Mary Grace Butron and Ma'am Aleli Nagpala. Chapter 3.4 is about using a Freirean approach within the Global Youth Solutions Program, where the problem arises. That states that we live in a society where the structure and the cultures are alien to us, and those in power determine how we live our lives. Even young people have this mindset, according to Mitsen of 2010. Therefore, Freire approach is being used within the Global Youth Solutions Program. First, what is Freire approach? It actually offers a system where the power of learning is shifted from the tutor to the student, and this shift in power is a way of providing the students with the opportunity to empower themselves through their own learning. So the role of the tutor is to purely facilitate the sessions to ensure learning is taking place. However, the learning is guided by the students. And from his perfect perspectives, the role of the teacher is not only to facilitate the sessions, but also to posing problems about codified existential situations in order to help learners arrive at more critical view of their reality. Allowing the students to take control of the power of learning in a critical manner enables them to achieve critical awareness and break away from the culture of silence. And Freirean approach also allows the young people to develop self-awareness, which will free them to be more than just passive objects. For the rationale, this exploration will provide colleagues within the center of the said program with a more theoretical understanding of the program, as well as draw their attention to whether the adoption of the Freirean approach can contribute to the delegates' feeling of empowerment. In order to evaluate the Freirean methods within the Global Youth Solutions Program, the following questions will be asked to address the issues. First, what aspects of the program allow the facilitators to act for change through critical thinking? And second, does the program provide the participants with the opportunity to break away from the culture of silence? For the methodology, those that take on an anti-positivist standpoint see reality as something that is socially constructed through relationships, psychological activities, and shared understandings that we all take part in. Those that take on a positivist approach to their research tend to favor a quantitative approach, whereas anti-positivists favor a more qualitative approach or a mixed method approach. The participants that attend the Global Youth Solutions Program in 2014 as delegates will complete open-ended questionnaires also, so they are able to state whether or not the activities within the program provided them with the opportunity to break away from the culture of silence. Under the unstructured interview, the researcher will interview past and present facilitators of the program, exploring the long-term impact of the program. For the open-ended questionnaires, the questionnaire will allow the researchers to evaluate the short-term impact that Freirean approach has on the delegates attending the Global Youth Solutions Program. Ethical considerations were considered, of course. It provides a straightforward explanation of ethics by stating that it is concerned with respecting research participants throughout each project, partly by using agreed standards. Further reflection, evaluating the Freirean methods within the Global Youth Leadership Program will help identify whether or not it contributes the feeling of empowerment within the delegates and their ability to break away from the culture of silence. This will allow the Global Youth Solutions Coordinator to revise the curriculum and the way the program is delivered, as well as highlight whether or not the Freudian approach is best suited to the program. The Global Youth Solutions Program is adapting the methods of Freire. However, there is no clear evidence of its impact and how the methods are implemented. And that's all for our report. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, allow me to discuss the magic of mentoring. The mentoring process implies that the mentor and mentee would communicate and learn together. This approach includes developing mentoring connections where both parties take pleasure in the activity and feel at ease in the surroundings. This fosters a good rapport and an emotional bond that will further develop cognitive abilities and result in satisfying experience. The significant research of Hughes and Spencer asserts that it is crucial to take into account the actual mentoring project that enables these ties in order to accurately assess the quality of mentoring relationship. The program should consider the following 7 factors: age, gender, and ethnicity are just a few examples of demographic variables that shouldn't stand in the way of developing a mentoring connection. The emphasis should be on creating a sense of intimacy between the mentor and the mentee. A humanistic approach is likely to be the magic element in the mentoring relationship through interactive dialogue in the interest of liberation, empowerment, and social transformation. Effective mentors should possess a wide range of traits that can influence how effective their mentoring interactions are. They should have diverse perspective on their function and purpose and oversee facilitating and strengthening the relationship with self-assurance as well as the underlying abilities and knowledge that support persistence, strong feelings of confidence, and strong self-efficacy beliefs. Moving on to our next discussion, let us all welcome Mr. Hector Pandi to discuss teaching for transformation, higher education institutions, critical pedagogy, and social impact.
Chapter 3.6, Teaching for Transformation, Higher Education Institutions, Critical Pedagogy, and Social Impact by Jean McEwan Short and Victoria Jepkina. This chapter focuses on the key idea that teachers must become transformational leaders to cope with the demands and trends of the new generation without sacrificing the missions and visions of our schools and universities. That is, teaching for transformation. HEFKI 2015 has encouraged universities to recognize and value how knowledge can move beyond and between traditional academic boundaries. Thus, higher education institutions must also adopt the new trend of teaching approaches that will suit the needs and demands of the present generations. Our premise is that critical pedagogy is one approach by which teaching and scholarship can contribute to university's social agenda. Critical pedagogy is about teaching students to think critically and question the information they are given. The idea on critical pedagogy tells us that we as teachers must transform ourselves from utilizing traditional teaching practices to that of applying critical pedagogy. Traditionally, our focus is on classroom instruction. In critical pedagogy, the emphasis is on human beings, their needs, and history. Traditionally, we focus on instrumental dimensions and education. In critical pedagogy, we focus on holistic function, from being neutral to political, and from being unidimensional to being multidimensional. This, however, brought us a lot of dilemmas due to the following reasons. 1. The teaching method in formal higher education is still operating in a formal context of modular provision initiated in United Kingdom in the 1990s. 2. Critical pedagogy requires an authentic engagement. Brookfield believed that working toward democratic classroom through dialogue and conversation, we can illuminate reality. 3. Critical pedagogy asks educators to recognize the iterative nature of the learning process. It requires an engagement with our own personal growth. According to Freire, we are unfinished, uncompleted beings in and with a likewise unfinished reality, and therefore we are all in constant state of learning. By drawing on our experience of teaching in formal education settings, we explore two possible approaches that bring a critically engaged pedagogy into the university classroom. The two approaches are informal learning and experiential learning. Education under informal learning is unplanned, unstructured, and self-directed. On the other hand, experiential learning is based on the understanding of learning as a process that requires involving learner, providing concrete experiences and rooms for self-reflection. A key aspect of both approaches discussed in the previous slides is to develop a learning environment that is conducive to discussion, dialogue, and developing critical thinking. In experiential learning, this is achieved through a cycle of reflection and action according to Kolb. And in informal learning, Ledwith suggests that this can be achieved through presenting codification. The importance of how informal educators engage people is crucial. The frequency and depth of discussion and dialogue are important. In terms of social impact, this shifting of understanding about who has knowledge and who has the right to question is powerful. Students choosing to offer their opinions with more and more engagement and discussion developing over time is indicative of an environment that has succeeded. In conclusion, Zero challenges educators to ensure a more socially just future, and Butcher reminds us that this requires much more than the use of logic, academic thinking, and strategizing around issues of inequality. Furthermore, our ontological and epistemological perspective determine how we view our role as both researchers and as educators.
Thank you very much, sir. This time, let's all listen to Ma'am Rasa Lapilatos as she discusses teacher education for maladjustment, teaching teachers to gallop and canter through the corridors.
Key points on this topic. First, social transformation cannot occur without education. Second, education is a form of intervention in the world, suggesting both of the reproduction of the main ideology and the unmasking. And lastly, a teacher should perceive that practicing the teaching profession demands of where one stands when it comes to his belief. According to Freire, schooling is the aim to control an individual's thoughts and behavior in order to undermine their capacity for creativity. Education allows one to exercise freedom and promotes the pursuit of justice and truth. The world is transformed or changed for the better through education. An analysis of the effects of the teacher education team conducted in the late 1990s found that the program was very effective in fostering the process of conscientization, empowering the teachers involved, and transforming both their practices and relationship with other members of their professional communities. The researcher noted that some people's spirits changed from being just passive or the attitude of being domesticated. Although there are still some who remain unpliant, they became men with revolutionary spirit, often described as maladjusted. The communication between instructors was described as defensive, not open and free, by two-thirds of the teachers. Teachers are said to feel authoritarian when it comes to communication, with external authority attempting to stifle the freedom of open speech by instituting house oppression. Teachers who have had less exposure to democratic ideals tend to be more individualistic, as they believe that other teachers cannot be trusted. leading them to fear real relationship and cast doubt on their existence. As a result, they are unable to forge a sense of oneness and unity among their peers. According to Freire, educators who have never seen a democracy are more flexible and willing to submit to authoritarian regimes and lack the motivation to struggle for freedom. A teacher's desire to engage in intellectual conversation and avoid becoming complacent or stagnant increases with their level of education. Less educated or completely illiterate persons, according to Macedo, have a smaller universe because they associate with fewer people who can limit their critical consciousness and have a propensity to reject change. According to the study, teachers and students have more honest and productive conversations that allow pupils to act honestly and with confidence. However, despite this openness to dialogue with students, authoritarian authorities would still implant in them the fear of freedom. Participants in the study who were teachers provided important insights of the revival of the profession and future teacher education. The results indicated that the members of the teacher education team were successful in preparing teachers for the challenged path they would take as they used Freire's politico-pedagogical method in the classroom. Teachers' passionate commitment to empowering communication and relationship with students, their ongoing readiness for curiosity, creativity, and experimentation, and their determined efforts to find the joy, excitement, and hope in their work all contributed to the promotion of Freire's politico-pedagogical approach. Their inability to connect and link with larger critical issues prevents them from engaging in a general critique of the social mission of their educational enterprise and from realizing their role in reproducing the values of the dominant social order, which makes the idea of developing, strengthening, and changing consciousness difficult to implement. The study's participants who are teachers support progressivism in order to support teachers in maintaining the flame of resistance, arousing their curiosity and igniting their potential for risk and adventure in order to defend and shelter themselves from authoritarian administrators. And for them to be able to do it, they need each other's support and full energy. According to Freire, true education is represented in people's ongoing search alongside others as they completely develop as beings in the environment they live in. In the human vocation of teaching, it is the shared joy between teachers and pupils that creates obligations for one another. Instead of focusing on the qualities of a teacher in the teaching profession, teachers are evaluated using standardization techniques, such equating them to the credentials they possess. Many teachers would pursue their teacher education, much like the majority of teachers do today, earning master's and doctoral degrees rather than undergoing training to hone, enhance, and upskill. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, to discuss nurturing musical creativity, a Frerean approach, let's hear it from Mr. Jarom Aner.
Good day. Our group is discussing Chapter 3.8 entitled Nurturing Musical Creativity, a Prairie Approach, and is written by Alexander Zram. This paper recounts and evaluates a process of curricular reframing prompted by an encounter with Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed in 1996, a book by Brazilian educator Paulo Freire, which led to an examination of the efficacy of the master-apprentice teaching model, where master is the model who demonstrates, directs, comments, and inspires, while the apprentice is the disciple whom watches, listens, imitates, and seeks approval in the music conservatoire environment. Freirean approach has also been referred to as problem posing, psychosocial approach, learner-centered approach, liberatory and participatory approach. The author shared his teaching practices and insights in the music conservatoire environment, where, according to him, he taught his students how to become more like him, and it was clear to him that he was not nurturing his students' inherent musical identities. He also shared that his ambition as teacher is not to produce clones of his image. His aim was to nurture and bring to fruition the students' own musical inclinations or enthusiasms that could help them to develop a long pathway that which his students themselves determine. That is why the author changed his approach after reading the book Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. According to him, after reading Freire, it made him realize many things that he had been done in delivering the course led to what described as the banking concept style of education. The concept of banking approach was introduced by Freire, an approach where teachers just depositing information into students instead of drawing out knowledge from individual students or creating inquisitive being with a thirst for knowledge. The table show the author's teaching approaches before and after curriculum reframing. Before, his method is banking approach in a way that as teacher, he served as the subject of learning, while his students as mere objects of that process. It is teacher-centered in nature. In the reframed curriculum, it shows the Freudian approach where his practices involves presenting knowledge problematically in a problem-posing dialogue that promotes more active participation and develops critical reflection. The teacher is no longer an information giver, but a co-communicator with students in their dialogue. Share responsibility in managing and directing the learning process is also observed. According to the author, it takes courage and patience to explore and commit to the second technique, which presents an idea, a problem to solve, but requires the students to create their own solution. The student experience a process of struggle, yet emerge from it overcoming obstacles through their own agency. Revealingly, the reframed curriculum prompted student responses that the author would never possibly could never have thought of as their teacher. These responses were not stimulated by his experience or identity, but were an authentic response from the learners. When this occurred, the teacher was left with an indelible impression that they truly were creating their own music, and by doing so, they were practicing in the transformation of their world. As Freire has said repeatedly, education is never neutral. Problem-solving pedagogy is designed to foster the kind of new learning that profoundly affect people's lives. Its aims are to cherish and to train all students' capacities to think well about an increasingly complex world, to perceive the strong mediating relations between themselves as individuals and the cultural meaning and structures they live within. The importance of experience variation and choosing to accommodate to specific variations is a crucial aspect of learning. Yet, the students need to understand that in most instances, a particular musical response or solution cannot be said to be better than another. That ends our privileged speech. Thank you for listening.
And that concludes the discussion for today. Hoping that you've learned new things from our discussions. Thank you, God bless, and mabuhay.